Fault. TV.
Hello out there, I'm Reagan, aka femmelectric, a DJ and promoter in San Francisco. Thank you for tuning in to this International Women's Day live stream, and thank you Fault Radio for hosting this virtual event. And thank you to Shack 15 for letting us film this discussion atop the Ferry building. International Women's Day is a day to celebrate the successes and victories of women, but also a time to reflect and recognize and raise awareness about issues and disparities that still exist. And so because of that, among today's amazing music programming, we also wanted to present some candid discussions. And so I'm sitting here today with some boss women who work behind the scenes to bring us the live music events that we so desperately miss right now. I'll be speaking with them about their roles in the industry and about how they've adapted to pandemic life and issues they still face, and their outlook on the future as businesses start to reopen. Today we have Colby Alexis Jones from Another Planet Entertainment, Bailey Greenwood from Liaison Artists, and Demetria Ruiz from F8 Nightclub. And with that, I'll let each panelist just tell us a little bit about how long they've been in the music industry, what their role is right now, and the thing that brings you the most joy about your job. Colby, let's start with you.
I'm Colby. I'm with Another Planet Entertainment. I'm the special events director for the company. I've been in the events industry, live events industry, for close to 20 years. I started in catering and small gigs, weddings, and have kind of over the years moved up through managing venues, being a house manager for several theaters throughout the Bay Area, but particularly San Francisco. And then I started with Another Planet about 6 years ago, and I've worked my way up through the ranks over time, and now I'm the director of their special events department. I love my job. It's probably the first time I've ever said that in my life, but it's a lifestyle more than a job even for me, and yeah, I just love it. That's it.
That's great to hear. It's great to love your job. Bailey, what about you?
Hi, my name is Bailey, and I'm at Liaison Artists. I've been an agent there for 7 years, or been working there for 7 years, and been an agent for the last 4. I've been working in music for the last 11 years, pretty actively, whether that is in the nightclub setting, taking photos, promoting, all that other stuff. I've kind of worn a lot of hats in this industry, but found my way really loving the agency life, working directly with artists, and helping their careers develop in North and South America. Yeah.
Thank you. Demetria?
My name is Demetria Ruiz. I work at F8 Nightclub in Soma. I've been there for 8 years, and I've been working in the electronic music industry for 14 years. I've been working in large-scale events in theaters since I was really, really young. And part of what I love about all of that is that it incorporates all these different types of creativity into one space, and it allows me to build a community of people that are like me, which is amazing every single day, to share music and art constantly.
Truth. Thank you for providing that space for a lot of us. Can you tell us a little bit about the history of F8, and also a little bit from your years working at 1015, how you've witnessed the music scene change over the years?
Sure. I mean, both venues are so different, and both venues have huge, important parties in the community. And every party has growing pains. You know, some of these shows have been going on for 5 or 6 years. Some of them have been going on for 20 years. And as someone who gets to support the people that put them on, it's really nice to see that teams grow and people find the help that they need, and all the resources are around us. And I mean, as far as gentrification goes, things change in every culture every couple years. Every 6 months in San Francisco, things feel different. But that's part of the fun too. And fortunately, the Bay Area is full of people that adapt really well. So it changes all the time.
Bailey, can you tell us a little bit about Liaison Artists as a company and the role of an agent specifically? Because a lot of people like me don't understand all the various roles behind the scenes of a big touring artist, let's say.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So Liaison Artists has probably been around, I think, 22 years as a company. What I really love about the agency is we are one of the last standing independent agencies in North America, which means that we're not owned by a corporate entity in any sort of way. So that's given us the opportunity to do a lot of things that a lot of other agencies are not able to do. We're not necessarily 100% money focused in the way that we develop our rosters and everything. We can really get creative with a lot of stuff. So yeah, I really love it. Agents primarily are kind of like the key players in how an artist is seen from the general public. So we really work directly with the artists and the managers to kind of figure out what kind of story they want to present to the world, as far as what kind of audiences they want to be in front of, what kind of shows that they want to play. And from there, we really are kind of just the people who develop their careers in the territories that we're in. So we do North and South America and sometimes Australia and Asia, but really our bread and butter is obviously North America. And yeah, we handle visas and stuff for a lot of artists who are out of the country. And we go through that whole process with them. It's really fun.
Thanks for sharing.
Yeah.
Colby, I know in speaking with you before, we talked a little bit about Another Planet Entertainment and how I'd always assumed it was this big company, and I was surprised to hear from you that it's a small staff and also an independent promoter. Can you give us a little background on APE as a company?
Thank you for calling it APE. We're very picky about that.
Wait, so that's politically correct?
It is. I think a lot of times people call it APE, and we don't want to be that. Sorry, I'm digressing. So Another Planet actually started as a sort of splintered group off of Bill Graham Presents. That was actually its original body, which came out of Bill Graham, who is, as many people know, is sort of one of the kind of godfathers of the rock and roll industry in a certain level. He was one of the first promoters in San Francisco who, he knew the Grateful Dead and, promoted a lot of the main shows that we all think of as sort of the roots of rock and roll in the Bay Area. That company, after he died in the 90s, carried on for a while. And then in 2000, I want to say it was in 2000, the company was bought by a large corporation at that point, and it kind of went through multiple hands. And at one point, the current owners of Another Planet, that's Greg Perloff and Sherry Wasserman and Steve Walcom, all who had been members of Bill Graham Presents, they were tired of working for this corporate body, and they wanted to do something else. And they said, we're going to be our own thing, and we don't want to, we don't want to kind of carry on in this mold. And a lot of people told them they were from another planet for thinking this way. And they said, okay, we're going to name our company that. And so they've carried on since 2003 as Another Planet Entertainment. They started out actually renovating the Fox Theater in Oakland and started the Independent. And the Independent, I think, is a good way of kind of earmarking what the company is about, which is trying to promote independent music and do it independently. They liked the idea of trying to build up groups from a smaller venue and then get them into those larger places, because they know that the roots of most music start small and you build up, and you're not immediately in an arena. And that ethic is carried on. A lot of Bill Graham's roots have also been in kind of embedded into the company. It's, the ethic for us is about people having a safe and enjoyable time. They want people to have fun. And so that's sort of kind of been inculcated into all of us. But yeah, a lot of people think that we're a gigantic company. We do run many venues throughout the city. The Independent, like I said, the Fox Theater in Oakland, Bill Graham Civic Auditorium in San Francisco. And then we do Outside Lands Festival, but we are still a Bay Area company. We're based out of Berkeley. We haven't even gone national at this point. We are, this is our roots, and there's only 50 of us, and we do a lot with the 50 people, and that's a big point of our pride. But the big thing is that we are trying to do this independent of a corporate body. We want that flexibility. We want to be able to make calls and choices that may seem unorthodox, like they're from another planet. So yeah.
Well, thank you. I know many of us value the Independent, the Fox, Outside Lands, and I appreciate the shows that I've been to from another planet, so thank you just telling us a little bit more about the background and the ethos there. I'll just start with you and ask you, what were you doing this time last year, and what are you doing now? And you can speak to that personally as well as professionally.
Certainly this time last year, in general, I would be planning for a special event. And I think we had just finished up sort of a major season of that. For special events in particular, which are events that are not concerts, things that are, like a large tech conference or a product launch, sporting events, anything that kind of runs through our venues, those tend to kind of ratchet down at this time of year. So really I was mostly just settling out kind of different events we'd already done and planning for things coming up. Since then, we've definitely had to pivot, and things like Outside Lands, that was a major change for us. We wanted to still carry on some of that energy and still have something like a festival, and so we had to learn how to live stream. I mean, this was a new territory for us, and I think a lot of this year has been kind of teaching ourselves new skill sets, how to do the live streaming and everything incumbent with that. And there's a lot more than people would imagine. Even, I don't know, pardon me, I'm actually forgetting. Apologies.
That's okay. I just thought of something you had told me before too, which was surprising, is that Another Planet hasn't had any layoffs during this time.
That was a big thing. I think a lot of us had anxiety. We were looking at sort of the horizon of things going on for other companies, including some of the large corporate bodies that put on concerts as well. And there were a lot of furloughs and layoffs. And so every month we would have these company meetings, and everyone would be, all the faces on the Zoom screen, and you could see the anxiety in all of our faces, and we're all going like, do we still have a job? And at one point the owners, we all kept sending in questions like, how much longer will we be employed for? And the owners went, we're confused why you guys don't understand why you keep asking us this. Why are you worried about being employed still? Of course we're keeping you. We've spent all this time vetting you and trying to create this culture here. We're not trying to lose you. And the collective relief that happened there, it was awe-inspiring. This is not something they had to do. This is something that is absolutely costing them money to do. And to be honest, I loved my job before, but I just feel so cared for in that, and really recognized. There's not a lot of attaboys and gold stars in our industry. And so that really made me understand that, like, wow, I'm valued here. Till the day I die, love for Another Planet.
That is very remarkable. Makes me feel much better about supporting, buying their tickets in the future, that they were able to take care of their employees during this time. So thanks for sharing that. I also wanted to give a shout out to the Inside Lands live stream, which was a highlight in many of our quarantines. I know that was the first live stream that was kind of like higher level, and it was the first chat I had been in where I couldn't even say hi to my friend before it disappeared because there were like 30,000 people in the chat. But yeah, there was a lot of energy around that, and it was really fun to attend. So
thank you for that.
Thanks for pivoting to that. That was really a highlight.
Us too, actually. We'll see how it goes next year. Maybe we'll add that too.
Cool. Bailey, we'll take it over to you. How have things shifted for you this year?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of crazy. I look back at this weekend, specifically in March, was like the last weekend I was ever on tour. And like, it was weird because this tour was right at that pivotal moment when people were really starting to talk about COVID and how it was going to have a serious effect. So I remember I flew into DC and my Uber driver was like being like, should I be scared? Like, I don't know. She was talking to her friend on the phone and she was like, I don't know. I have this random person in my car. Like, should I be freaked out? She just got back from the airport. And it was just like, I know that's kind of how my tour started. And I was like, this is weird. And then we got to the hotel. Everything was normal. The promoter had told us like a lot of people had asked for refunds, but the still was still pretty full. It was a big sweaty nightclub, hundreds of bodies still dancing it out. So that felt kind of normal. Then we flew to Canada. And that's when kind of things really hit the fan. And when we were in Canada, they weren't too concerned about COVID yet. So the show was still sold out and it was totally normal. But the next day when we got to the airport, it was like kind of crazy. They were handing out masks and I was like, should I wear them? And you could tell people going through customs just like weren't really sure what to do. We were all kind of like looking at each other like, should we be freaked out? Should we be here? Are we going to get home? And like, we did, it was totally fine, but it was kind of weird traveling in this moment where I was like, I don't feel like I should be traveling, but I'm so far away from home that I have to travel and I have to be in multiple airports to get home now at this point. And then the last stop of the tour was this festival in Florida. And, and I think that was kind of the craziest part of this whole tour after everything else was so crazy because this festival had started the week prior and so people were camping out. People didn't have their phones on, so people there didn't really have any kind of idea as to what was kind of going on. They had, and you know, obviously like the promoters and the people picking us up from the airport and stuff knew what was going on. They were like extra careful. There was like, you could tell they like went to like Walmart or something and had these like hand sanitizers and they didn't open them. They were just kind of like in the car. They're just like, do you want some? It's like this big bottle of Perel. And so, yeah, but it was kind of weird that was like my send off from the world that I knew was this festival where everyone was like, it's all good. We're dancing. We're still having fun. And I was like, man, when you guys turn on your phones tomorrow, it's going to be a different story. So, yeah, it was just kind of crazy that was my send-off from like the life that I knew, basically, and I'm really thankful that I actually had that weekend, even though it was kind of chaotic and weird, and we didn't really know what to expect, but honestly, I feel very privileged from this last year because, you know, I think the last 7 years being an agent, I really dove into it and gave it my all, which is something that, you know, I hadn't really done fully in a job before. And, you know, I think part of that is, you know, it became my identity in a lot of ways. And when this all happened and I was furloughed in July, I kind of had like a big identity crisis and I didn't really know who I was in a lot of ways because I didn't have this. And, you know, I am thankful that I actually am still on furlough and I still have a job to go back to when the time has come. And I feel really thankful for that. But yeah, it's been a big shift for me, honestly. And I think it was really positive in a lot of ways. I've become a homebody, which is something I've never been in my entire life. I'm always out all the time, even if it's a weekday, even if it's just like going out to dinner or something. And so it's really nice having this time and space to like, I feel like I'm kind of healing in a way.
Yeah, having met you during this time, it's really hard for me to imagine pre-pan Bailey, I have to say, because we've had many like cozy home hangouts. Yeah. But yeah, thank you for sharing that about kind of the identity crisis, because I know I've had several friends and family who were laid off who also went through that, and it's been a real struggle. Sorry, not laid off, but you were furloughed, but you know, everybody's adapted differently and it's been really difficult. So thanks for sharing that. Demetria?
Well,
what were you doing last year and what are you doing now?
Now and then, yes. So then I was working 80-hour weeks. I was working at 3 different venues that I love with people that I love and who love me, and going out dancing all the time and working undergrounds. I was going to like basement and warehouse parties every weekend, and yeah, pretty spoiled. I was living the dream. You know, I don't take it for granted, and I also try to do it full force as much as I can. And you know, of course, your identity is tied up in your work when you're that dedicated and invested in it, and never had any qualms about that. So adjusting was really difficult. You know, it's hard to stay home and sit still for hours on end. And fortunately now, the one venue that I manage, F8, has reopened. We have a parklet, and we're serving food, and I'm learning how to waitress, and wearing a bunch of hats. You know, my boss and I are the only people there because we can't afford to pay a full staff yet. So we're kind of just letting business trickle back. We're trying not to overcrowd our parklet. We want it to be safe. So basically, we're just rolling with the punches every week with the city, and trying to abide by the rules, and also stay a step ahead of sanitization, and trying to get some of our musicians out of their houses too, because so many people who are there all the time have been doing the same thing, just kind of staying at home and not sure what to do with their creativity if they have it. So now we're just kind of slowly refostering that environment, and it's definitely different than it was before, but the live stream is it's its own animal, and it keeps us super engaged, and have to learn new methods of it all the time, because it's not a perfect science. You definitely don't just plug in and go. So it's technical
Amen.
difficulties every day. Yeah.
I have felt that pain so many times. Also, I just want to, thinking back on last year, last International Women's Day, for myself and a lot of people who attended and played there, and even Fault Radio crew, we had an event at 906 World Cultural Center, an old historic cathedral in Russian Hill, and that for a lot of us, it was on Sunday, March 8th, and was our last live event. So just in reflecting back on a year's time, like that's where I was last year. So anyway, shout out to everyone who was there, and here we are, and I'm so happy that Fault Radio is hosting the virtual version of this event, and it's opening up to, speaking of live streaming, just, you know, a new way of doing things, and sitting down and having conversations with people in the industry. So I really love that about live streaming, is that it's opened up like more creative expression, more dialogue, and other ways of connection. On that note, I also want to speak to, it's been a very busy year for music and venue advocacy, politics, you know, social justice, and I just want to allow each of you to speak to any advocacy and efforts that you were involved in over the last year. Colby, we'll start with you.
Certainly one of the big pivots that we had was realizing we were going to have to advocate to save ourselves on some front. The music industry is sort of this magic curtain, you know, and we don't allow people to see behind it most of the time because that sort of detracts from the magic. But in doing so, you know, I think a lot of us were not being seen, and there were millions of us that were instantly unemployed. Venues had to immediately close. We were the first thing to close, and we're the last thing that's going to open. And you know, it struck us there was no one out there speaking, and so we had to sort of pick up the mantle of advocacy. You know, our company and members of my company basically formed the North Bay chapter of NIVA, which is the National Independent Venues Association. And there were also other movements like Save Our Stages, which many people have heard of, because there are musicians who have joined that advocacy, and other big name, you know, types in the industry, because it is so dire. And you know, we had to talk to state legislature and you know, and just say, like, this is what this industry looks like. You're not only thinking of venues that are impacted, but all the other things that are incumbent with a show. You know, when people go to a show, they ride transit or they take a Lyft or an Uber there. Those people are losing money. They eat at a restaurant before they go there. They may go to a bar before or after. Even the bar service that's within our venues, those are hundreds and hundreds of people for every single venue. Security guards, ushers, you know, it's like all of these other elements that are inside of what we do. And that's just the people in the front of the house. I mean, it's like I could go on and on. You know, so that's been a big thing, is trying to get people to understand that we're here. And in fact, we're a huge part of what, you know, employs people in our nation. I mean, basically it's retail, and then it's us. It's the live events industry. And gratefully, we've seen some movement. I mean, there have been things added to our stimulus package, which, you know, we're so grateful for. We've seen, you know, state and, you know, national representation actually speaking about us. Wearing, I saw Schumer the other day wearing a Save Our Stages mask, and I thought, thank you. You know, it's, but it was definitely a learning curve. We didn't realize how little people understood about what we do. So that's been a big thing. But yes, Save Our Stages. You're saving a lot of people in doing that. A lot of people.
So how do you, how should people get involved in Save Our Stages?
You know, there are some movements that, you know, it's about contributing dollars. This one is more about voices. It's about getting legislators to understand that you're part of that large conglomerate of people who have lost their job. And, you know, things like venues, we can't let these things close permanently. It's hard for people to understand, you know, they go to a big concert like Lady Gaga at, you know, Oracle Arena, and certainly there are arena shows, but there's also those small independent venues like the Independent, and even one smaller than that, where those musicians start. That's, bands start small. They start opening for two other bands in a bar at midnight. I was in that band myself. You know, it's, that's how they find each other. That's how they, you know, form different groups. And it's like, this is all part of creating that music that we all love. And so we need to protect those types of venues, small to big. So really it's about calling up your state legislature, really pushing for even things like understanding the phases of reopening. Because currently in California, for instance, there isn't actually a designated tier for the reopening of live events venues. It just doesn't exist. They haven't even said this is when we can open. And so it's really contributing our voice and making sure that you pick a level, call them up. It doesn't even matter. City, state, you know, anyone. I mean, I'm like, call the president. But call the president, please. That's what I'm going to say. So yes, make your voice heard. Please write and please call. That's what we ask.
Thank you. Bailey?
Yeah. So I was really stoked on Save Our Stages when I found out about it, and I loved that on a big national level that this was happening. And I felt that this also needed to happen within communities as well. So me and a group of lovely individuals started what we call Revive the Night, where we focused in on, we really just targeted the electronic music scene that's here in San Francisco, because it is such a special scene that I think, especially people who are like newer to the city, didn't necessarily talk about or kind of know about the history of. So that part of it was wanting to educate people on where the scene is, like what venues exist as part of, you know, supporting the scene, and kind of just like, honestly, just giving the community a chance to just talk to each other again and be with each other again. And that's really what it kind of, the whole event was. And we were actually inspired by the Inside Lands live stream. And that's kind of how we developed the concept for Revive the Night and how it manifested. And yeah, it's been really cool. And I'm really happy that we were able to contribute money to some of these venues. Obviously, it wasn't a ton of money, and it's not going to be anywhere near the level of amount of income that they need to really make a difference. And Save Our Stages, obviously, that's where they come in, you know, to really get in the big chunks of money. But at the end of the day, I think it was cool just to show the world and, you know, San Francisco that like our community is still here. We're still thriving, even though we're not necessarily together. We still want to be together. We still want this community to exist and to thrive when we come back. So it's been really cool. But yeah, so we did the venue thing in December, and We actually just got physically sponsored by Intersection for the Arts, so we're going to continue the project and start working on doing new initiatives that focus on the community as a whole, so not just venues, but the people who are employed by the venues, artists, and all that great stuff. That's next.
That's awesome. And I do want you to give a numerical shout out to the event, because it was people tuning in right now, and it was our community who were able to collectively raise this money, and we were so grateful. And so I believe it was $45K total for the
46.
46.
Almost 50K, which was our total, but there's time.
And there were 12 venues involved and represented, right? So yeah, that was really remarkable. And I know like a side benefit was that the community was just so enthusiastic and so grateful to come together. And, you know, I even heard like beyond, you know, the monetary value for the venues, that the venues were really grateful to also, you know, shine the light on artists and give artists that feeling of identity and purpose again. So shout out to Revive the Night and Bailey. And F8, who was one of the venues and participated. And, you know, I was happy to be involved with that. And yeah, it was a really, really special event and a time to come together as a community. So
It was.
Demetria, do you want to speak to that additionally, or any other advocacy? And also just in general, F8 started fundraising. Well, when did y'all start live streaming?
We've been live streaming basically the entire time. I think we took like 2 months, maybe 6 weeks even, to like kind of decide how we were going to do it and the frequency with which we were going to do it, which turned out to be basically every day, because my boss has a hard time being bored. And you know, this is like a time that we have to do all the things we've always wanted to do creatively that we just don't have time for when there's 400 people in the venue. So it's been really, really beautiful to see Revive the Night bring everyone together and bring viewers to our stream and shine light on local artists that, you know, there's people that you see open every show and you never really know what their name is or what groups they're a part of. So advocating for their visibility is amazing. Also, just in general, you can't separate the politics from the dance floor, and so through all of this, it's been really beautiful to see everyone in the music scene continuing to support Black Lives Matter and advocating for trans rights and trans visibility, even though we're all very separate. And those are things that we were really trying to fuel conversation for when the closures happened. So the fact that we've been able to carry all those themes through our live streaming is really important, and I'm glad that we have the attention to do that.
Well, as someone who had the opportunity to play at F8 a few times during the pandemic, and one time with Bailey even, I'm so grateful that, shout out to Raphael, for going in and starting this whole thing and, you know, giving artists the opportunity to creatively express and have that feeling of being in a club again, even if there's only 3 people inside. I know all of us who have played there are really grateful for the safe space to just be able to express and share our feelings through music and, you know, what was going on politically, socially this last year too. I know a lot of it came out in our music there. So thank you so much for being so hospitable and always being there. And you're such a gem to the community. So thank you. I am going to shift topics now and ask you all how being a woman has impacted your role in this industry and some ways you feel you've been treated differently than men, or some also ways you've been treated differently, you know, both because of your gender and or race. So Bailey, we'll start with you this time.
Cool. I feel very fortunate because the VP at Liaison is a woman. So I think, and for the majority of the time that I've worked at Liaison, not the very beginning, but the majority of the time, the company has either been 50-50 women and men, or at this point now, it's actually more women than men. So, I always feel like, at least as part of like our little agency bubble and pod group family, it's always been a very supportive community, and the men are very sympathetic and understand, and really make sure that we are heard just as much as they are. I think outside of that, our little community of the agency obviously is when it starts to dawn on me that being a woman in this industry is we're treated a little bit differently. So it's happened in lots of different ways. Like I remember it's a simple thing as like my Gmail like profile picture. I switched it to not being a picture of me for a long time because my name can be either male or female, and I got more responses, so that was kind of weird. When I was, at first I was like, yeah, I got my small little artist, like they're just growing, no one wants to respond, but actually it was this like weird little test that I did and it worked. So that was kind of funny. And then, just tour managing, I am definitely treated a lot differently when I'm touring with men compared to when I'm touring with women, and that's always been something that I've had to be hyper conscious of while I'm on the road, and something that I really take to heart. And also it's helped me even when I'm not working at a party, if I see women who are in similar roles as me, I always make sure that to look out and see that they're okay, and just extra precautions.
Can you give us an example of like how you're treated differently with women artists versus men?
Yeah, like, I think it's weird. It's the assumption is when I walk into a nightclub with the male headliner DJ that I am their girlfriend. And it's always been that every single time. At least, if it's not the promoter, it's like the promoter's friends in the DJ booth is like, so how long have you guys been dating? And I'm like, God, never. Actually, and then obviously it shifts because when I'm, touring with women, it's the same question, like how long y'all been dating, but it's different vibe. So it's definitely more getting hit on than, trying to ask a question to get to know me. So yeah, it's weird, but it's something that I'm so used to it happening that I sometimes don't even register that it's something that's sexist, I guess, because it's a constant. But yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for sharing. Colby, do you want to speak to some ways you're treated differently?
I would say it's like being a woman in the first place in the world already kind of presents what I would think is just my experience in the industry as well, which is just, I was saying, it's this added layer of work that you're having to do all the time. Certainly now I'm in a really idealized space. I work for a company that is right down the middle, half women, half men. One of the owners is a woman. A lot of people in high management roles are women. And I feel actually a great deal of regard and respect from my peers, where I often encounter a lot of the challenges or things that I think are particular to my being a woman are in the day-to-day sort of interactions, a lot of times with subordinate staff or people or attendees to our events. When I come in as a manager and I have to make that final call, if it's something as simple as, their ticket didn't scan for entry and, I have to come and tell them, I'm sorry, we're not going to be able to allow you in, or maybe it's that they're too inebriated to come in right now and I have to kind of give them a, we're going to need you to like wait maybe an hour or two, and then they ask for the manager and I say, I am the manager, and no, you're boss, I am the boss, and having to sort of kind of constantly do this sort of double work. And certainly, to be honest, is a lot of interactions where I feel like someone's hitting on me. And I think, would you do this with a man? Is this the interaction that a man gets in this environment? I can't speak to their experience, but I feel like that's what I'm constantly having to do is sort of this extra work. And there are days that I really resent it, to be honest. I would just like to do my job. And so that becomes a little difficult at times, a little trying, but it's also deeply embedded into my experience of being a woman in life, to be honest. So it's sort of like you accept it after a while because you just think, I'm not changing this paradigm, you know. But I work through it, and for the most part, I think my reaction now has been to sort of come immediately, energetically, with an air that says, I'm not going to be receptive to that behavior. I'm almost more firm, I'm almost more hard with people, and that seems to be a better proactive measure in a lot of cases, to be honest. But it just is.
Thank you. I know I can see that that would be very frustrating, and plus you're working in an environment where, you know, intoxication is prevalent, so it has to be like you're there to do a job, and it's a party around you, and so that behavior is just more compounded, so yeah. I feel for you. And I'm sure Demetria can relate to that as well.
I can. As it turns out, I can. Yeah, it really is. It's an extra layer to everything. I bartend also, and I almost always have a couple scripted, easy lines to throw at young men because I know what they're going to throw at me first. So in order to be a good hostess and to maintain this a welcoming environment and an environment where people are willing to learn from each other as well, I have to kind of nip those things in the bud as quickly as I can. And they come in all shapes and forms. You know, I work predominantly with men and always have, and people who look out for me and respect me and are good feminists and open to learning. And even then, you know, there's things that come up that are awkward or strange or inappropriate that I have to choose to delegate energy to correcting, or, you know, let it go and proceed with my workday. As a slightly smaller framed person, for example, I find a lot of the time that people are always trying to take things out of my hands because I can carry a lot of stuff, and I've been carrying things since I was like very small. And so when I'm carrying something, usually I'm good to go, but guys do this thing where they're like, oh, let me carry that 5-pound whatever, and I'm like, oh, thank you. Like, yeah, it doesn't need to be saved. Been out here for a while. Very familiar with being out in San Francisco at night. So it's mostly just reminding people that I'm able to do what they've asked me to do, and that if I need help, I'll ask for it. Shoot.
Well, there are worse worse behaviors that than getting help carrying glasses.
Sure, absolutely, yeah.
I just want to ask, like, broadly in the industry, have you seen any shifts in behavior or even like around company policy since the Me Too movement gained traction a few years ago? You know, a shift in office culture or, you know, show culture and creating safe environments for women. Demetria, we'll start with you for a change.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, immediately there was jokes, and then the reality of what happened really settled in for everyone, and it was interesting to watch all of the male counterparts stop and reevaluate how they speak to us, and body language is a big one. It's really nice to have a little more personal space now that people are worried that I might sue them. I love that. I also feel like maybe women are a little more emboldened to speak up for themselves, which is, again, it's an energy designation thing. It's whether or not you want to stop, leave the dance floor, go find a bouncer, drag someone outside, tussle with them verbally for 20 minutes. Now I think that women are getting more used to seeing that there's a route to do that people will be receptive and listen to them, that staff members are on their side, whether it's to avoid liability or because they're genuinely invested. And every staff that I've worked with has handled it a little differently. Some people ignore it. Some managers, you know, it's just another day for them and they think it's like a passing trend. And other managers have stepped up and been super supportive and reiterated new etiquettes to their security and other bartenders and things like that. And yeah, it's been different all over, but the impact is real for sure. Yeah.
Bailey?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's always been people who have come out and said these things. And I think before the Me Too movement, they just weren't as impactful for whatever reason. At the agency, definitely a few situations happened before Me Too movement that were, I think, a bit shocking for me, just as someone who is new to, you know, this kind of part of the agency and or world, basically. And it was really amazing to see, you know, these people in powerful positions take such a, you know, important stance against artists and whoever who needed to not have that stance anymore. And so I think the Me Too movement definitely heightened a lot of these claims. I think I had seen these claims in passing for sure, like a ton before it happened, but I don't think they were taken as seriously. And that's really cool that, you know, when people do speak out against these actions, that there's actions are actually taken now. And I think it's taken a lot more seriously than it was. I think in the beginning, or right before, you know, these things would happen, sometimes it would just kind of slide under the table, you know, or people, it would be just like a known thing, and no one would ever do anything about it because of how powerful these people were or whatever position they had. So it's been crazy. And I think, you know, artists are a lot more cautious, I've noticed, about how they approach, you know, partying when they're traveling in different cities. Like, you know, there's a lot of exhaustion, and we don't really talk about like the culture that's behind nightlife and how it kind of perpetuates this behavior. A lot of the time, you know, it's a mental health issue because these people are exhausted, you know, these people are traveling all the time and they get worn down. And I mean, it's a lot of things, and it's also just a big societal issue that comes out in these small ways. And I think, you know, we always want to put like a name and a face to something, and I think the Me Too movement really helped us understand that it's not just one name and one face, it's a lot of different names and faces.
Yeah.
You know, so.
Yeah, definitely there was power in numbers there. And it's as you're talking about the lifestyle and the culture, you know, your work is literally a party, and you are expected. I mean, as a DJ, I relate to this, you know, it's hard to like go to a gig and just be sober and leave when everybody expects you to be like creating the party environment. And also there's a lot of nerves and anxiety around performing. So yeah, I'm definitely not, but excusing any behavior based on that. But I'm just saying the culture in general is like really difficult. And so a lot of the claims that come out, you know, it's like there's two sides to every story, but we really have to like take it case by case. And I don't know. It's a really tough topic. I don't believe in canceling artists, but I definitely believe in, you know, a serious response, and not just saying that it is men who are the harassers or assaulters. It's also women to men. Actually, do you have an example of that? I thought
I do.
We had a conversation about the role reversal, because we typically always think it's like the male aggressor, but, you know, I also want to give light to, you know, it's not always the men. Yeah.
I mean, at the agency, we've had a lot of our claims before they go public come to us first, so we have a chance to really digest them a lot of the time, and make our decision on where we stand. 99.9% of the time, the artist or promoter is at fault, 100%. Completely, they're bad. But there is that 0.1 chance that sometimes you have to hear both sides really clearly. And majority of the time it's men, but there has been one or two cases where it's been a woman. And that was kind of an eye-opening thing, because that was the first case. It was a woman, happened maybe like a year after the Me Too movement, and it was like, it was interesting to hear about it, because the people who were voicing, it was multiple people who voiced against this one woman who was a promoter, not an artist. And it was interesting to hear the vulnerability. Did I say that right? Sipping over my words. These men shared the same vulnerability as similar women who had shared claims, and it was really kind of a crazy experience to like watch that unfold, you know, because you have to remember we make this such a male issue when you think of Me Too, but it can go both ways always. Yeah.
And just like in generally, just to like wrap up the idea, is that, you know, because we're in this like looser environment, this party culture, you know, of course, like attractions are stimulated, and I think it's why it's like ultimately, and also the power dynamics between the artists and the people they work for, promoters, agents. That's why, clear communication and consent cannot be stated enough, and probably sobriety would be a good one to add there. So I guess that's, just the message that I would drive home about the culture, because it can be really dangerous when lines are blurred. And with that, Colby, if you want to add anything to this conversation.
I think this last year has been really tremendous on a lot of fronts. I think I brought this up with the group before, because really things like both Me Too and Black Lives Matter have been really showing kind of the way we construct power. And I liked that you had mentioned power, because I think that is really what it's about, is recognizing that power is attributed to certain groups in our society, and it could be for any number of reasons. There is sort of a supremacy construct around being white and male and wealthy in the world and able-bodied and heterosexual, but even kind of within that, right, you have those instances where maybe a woman is the aggressor or the person who does that because of the power that they possess. And now we're being taught about that. That's become the conversation. And I know I'm grateful, because I think that's what it's always needed to happen. We need to understand that really the issue is the construct of power and supremacy, and not really, we all are kind of victims depending on what circles we occupy in the world. We may be a female, but we're white. We may be black, but we're male. All of those things kind of lend privilege and take it away. And so it's like understanding like that idea, priming our brains for the understanding of power constructs. And I definitely see that happening more and more inside the workplace, where there's sort of a pause. I think there's because it's so deeply embedded in us, these are conditions that are there in our world telling us how to think and be. It's like we're being advertised to all the time about power. And, sometimes you buy Coca-Cola, and sometimes you're preying upon other people who are subordinate to you because of those conditions. And I don't know that it's immediately stopped everyone from doing some of the things that were not okay, but what I have seen is people catching themselves in those moments. And I did initially also in the Me Too movement, I will say, I think Demetria had said, people were sort of joking about it, oh, I know I better give you respect because you're a woman. The irony being, yes, I agree with you. Yes, you do. And in a weird way, they were still offering it, even though it was sort of like said with this sort of begrudging attitude. It was like, no, but you have changed. And I did watch that sort of embed in those individuals who used to be just so fighting those changes. So yeah, I mean, it's like, I have compassion for the process. I wish it was, understood immediately, and everyone was just automatically affording everyone respect and asking for consent and understanding that need. But I'm grateful for the catching and for that priming in the brain that I think has really occurred now. I think everyone understands that they need to sort of, check myself. So, that's progress. I'm happy for it.
Thank you for articulating that so eloquently, and such powerful words, and thank you for that truth. I also want to just say that's why having conversations like this that are slightly uncomfortable are so important, and I think that's what we've learned this year, that it's important to start talking about these things, because that's how we understand these power dynamics and privilege and struggles. So yeah, thank you all for being here and having this slightly uncomfortable conversation at moments, and sharing so openly and candidly. I would like to ask if you feel the pandemic has either greatened the struggle or allowed for more opportunities for women. Personally, I feel, having been part of the Revive the Night team, that was a big, I had a monthly party before this and occasional bigger events like International Women's Day, but being part of Revive the Night was such a gift. That was something that I wasn't a part of anything that big prior to this. So in some ways, I feel like having the playing field leveled or like completely maybe non-existent in some realms, like no one was really doing anything, and you know, a badass woman stepped up and asked a question, and then and there we went. So I feel like for me this is one example of how I've seen women be able to rise up during this time. So I don't know if others have observed that or thought about that or have other examples of the ways women have either rising up during this time and, you know, think it will continue, or ways in which, you know, maybe the struggle is deepened.
I don't.
Go for it.
You know, I don't know that there's been dramatic changes for me, other than maybe in slowing down, having an opportunity to connect more with some of the women within my company, for instance, particularly like the owner, the female owner, just having more of those one-on-one talks that I would never have had an opportunity for, because we're always busy. I mean, we're moving into every event. You barely finish one before you're into the next. And so having that downtime to be like, hey, I want to show you that how I do this. And, you know, what do you think about this? Or what changes are you wanting to afford your department? And just being able to sort of, you know, grow what I would like to do within the company. So for me, that's been the main positive change that helps at my work.
That's great. Anyone else want to share on this one?
Yeah, I actually noticed that right away, just from talking to people on like social media, on Facebook and Instagram. There was this phenomena of the women in my life being able to hear each other, because we're not in this den where many of us are holding our little worlds together on our shoulders, and we don't have time to slow down and talk to anyone, let alone to collaborate with people that are doing parallel work. So that's been really cool. You know, I've known Marisa for 8 years, the lady that runs Liaison, and just to be able to sit down and talk to her once every 6 months has always been really reaffirming and educational for me. So to be able to connect to people like that, and with Reagan, you know, I don't know if I'd spend half as much time with you if we were still in the chaos of what our lives were before. So that's really cool, and I'm super grateful for it. Yeah, pretty cool.
This is an emotional one. Yeah, all the warmth. Okay, conversely, what are some personal sacrifices pre-pan life in this industry you've had to make, or you see other women have to make to work in this industry and likely will moving forward?
I think a lot. I mean, I think I found that my close circle wasn't necessarily a close circle, and that's something I definitely reevaluated a lot when the pandemic hit. Was the people who I was conversing with a lot were people that were kind of just casual people through work and stuff, and it really helped me kind of connect back to my roots, and that's why I fell in love with San Francisco again in this pandemic, and that's why I did Revive the Night, because I loved it. And I was like, I love it here. It's so cool. Everyone's so amazing. You know, I look back on like my last 7-8 years working in music, and you know, I am proud. I don't mind the sacrifices that I made to get to where I am, but also I wish that there were times that I told myself I could just chill and sit and be with friends and be close with people. And, you know, I think for women, I've noticed, you know, a lot of the women who are agents don't necessarily get into relationships very fast. Like, I didn't get into a very serious relationship until just a few years ago, you know, and it was like my first really serious relationship ever. And it takes a lot. It's hard for men to be with women who dedicate their lives to music, because they have to be okay with us being gone a lot. They have to be okay with us maybe not necessarily having our heads completely in, just being at home sometimes, you know, and just always thinking about what we need to do and all this stuff. And so it's really special when you do. It's very rare. I love you, Cassidy. But you know, I think I've noticed that with like a lot of women, like they don't have like those, a lot of the women agents I know, aren't in serious relationships all the time, and when they are, it's obvious, it's that one special person that could deal with it. They don't have families, they don't have kids and stuff. And I always think about that. I always thought about, like, I don't necessarily want kids now or, in the next few years, but it's something that I always am conscious of. And like, if I did choose to become a mother, could I still do this? And then it's like, do I pick my job or do I pick motherhood? It's kind of this, I don't think that's a toss-up that men have,
That's a good point.
Yeah.
I would probably say similar things as well. This industry is, like I said, a life, and that's not a joke. I mean, it takes a lot of hours of the day, a lot of your energy even when you're not there. It's unorthodox times, you're not working Monday through Friday necessarily. There's sometimes you're doing a stint for an event that, Outside Lands takes 3 weeks to do, full start to finish. And the people who are doing the main production for that are there for 3 weeks straight. And those days are long, they're 17 hours, and it's taxing. And it's, I found the challenge, I don't know if it's just endemic to being a woman, because I think that men also in our industry also have this problem with their interpersonal relationships. It's like the ones that succeed the most are with people who are also in the industry, because it is hard to get my friends, for instance, to understand how much it's drawing off of me to do this work, that I have to be planning and thinking and responding, and there's just so much that I have to invest. And they're going, God, you always like, you won't make any plans definitively, and at first I'm like, because I'm a Californian, but also, yeah, I don't want to lie to you and say I'm going to have the bandwidth to handle that. Like, if I have some time off, I need to rest and like not think about other people and not be around them, and it's just an incredible energy draw. And so it's hard, and I think, God, how do people do this if they want to have children? And let's be honest, those roles are really still, no matter how much we've educated ourselves to the contrary at this point, I feel like we do know better, but women are almost always kind of given that. I'm not calling it a burden because I don't consider it one, but it's on the woman. The onus is on the woman to sort of sacrifice her professional ambitions. And I can't even own a pet. I mean, in good conscience, I feel like, I barely keep the plants alive. I couldn't leave, a cat even for any progressive amount of time. I just feel like, they would be heartbroken because I just don't have the time. Or even if I got home, I don't want that thing on my lap. I want everybody and everything to leave me alone. So it's hard. It does take a lot. And my hope is maybe that we might evolve out of maybe that tremendous draw, but frankly, I don't know how events would work in that way, if I was honest. I think they just do, the best types of events have you invested from the start to the finish. So, I'm okay with it. I've made my peace, but I think it's hard. It's hard for women especially.
Demetria?
Yeah, I mean, I think from a very young age, I've always had a very solid work ethic, and that's something that like runs in my family. And is not something that I realized was less usual until I was full tilt in the industry and finding that you have to carry things from start to finish. You have to see everything through, and it is really difficult it's difficult to find romance in a dark, loud place in the first place, and then to find someone who is stable and close enough that I can see them a couple times a week. And, my family accepted long ago that I'm not going to get to see them as often as I should. They're very nearby, and I still only get to see them, Christmas and birthdays. And I don't consider that a burden either, but it's definitely a sacrifice. And the pandemic has been a weird little blessing in disguise that I actually have time to sit on the phone and talk to my cousins for a couple hours. And I'm not taking that for granted, and trying to make the most of every hour of the day means something else now, and it means reconnecting with all the things that I have missed out on a little bit because I've been doing this, 6-7 days a week for more than a decade. Yeah.
Yeah, that works.
Yeah.
On this topic, are there ways related to this, but just broadly, that as events start to slowly trickle back, that you would like to see some shifts in the music industry moving forward into the future based on, all the lessons we've learned this past year, the culture, anything? Bailey?
Yeah, I mean, I think coming out of this pandemic, there's going to be a lot more DJs who are parents. a lot of quarantine babies coming out of this. I think a lot of artists have gone sober, and this kind of was a trend that was happening before the pandemic. And I hope it continues to become a trend, because I think promoting a healthy lifestyle is really what we can do for ourselves. You know, the workload is never going to change. The the hours that we put into this stuff, late nights, that's never going to change. But just being more vocal about how we can take care of ourselves physically and mentally, I think needs to happen a lot more.
But why? Why can't we just party like 6 p.m. to 12 a.m.?
I mean, you can just maybe drink some tea instead of do other things.
Colby?
Well, it's nice to hear that people are getting sober, actually. I think that's a tremendous change. To be honest, there is great pressure because it is a party lifestyle. You're creating parties, inevitably you're going to feel the pressure to be at one too. And it is a huge part of even networking and making connections for other shows and getting this artist to, collaborate with another. And so it's, it is sort of part of it. I agree with Bailey, though. I don't know that workload's going to change, unless the entire industry afforded more time to put things together. But in reality, because I do think there's some value to, like I said, start to finish sort of work, because, and I say that it's important to do that because you need to know where all the bodies are buried and where all the conversations have been had and agreements about this and that and where things are going to end up. It's like the only way for that to really work as seamlessly as possible is to really know it, the whole beast, head to tail. And, so that's going to require your time investment. I wish for more vacations. Our company, I'm grateful, they urge us to take the vacations, and we earn more and more of it as we work there longer. And there's even an understanding when we finish a large-scale event, it's expected that we are going to take time off, and you don't have to prove that to them, and you don't have to put in a writ over it. It's known, they're going to take a few days, and we're not going to make phone calls to them. But certainly, I think freeing people of the addictive beasts, I think, would be really helpful. More because it also is it's owning again that this is a profession, and that we're trying to treat it like a workplace. And it is unique, though. It's not a cubicle job, and it's that's a hard thing for me to explain to people as well. Is just how it may seem like we're chit-chatting and hanging out, but that's actually part of what we do too. So yeah, I don't know. I would hope for just more of that, more tea parties, I guess.
Demetria?
I hope that the live streaming sticks around. I hope that people understand that they can listen to music during the day with their families and their kids and their pets, and that they don't have to be, sitting in a dark corner with a drink in their hand in order to appreciate the array of amazing local artists that have been in San Francisco the whole time and will be here for much longer. And I think Revive the Night did an amazing job of making local artists really cool, and knowing who's on what lineup is going to be a bigger deal, like it should be when things go back to normal.
I hope so.
I hope day parties are a thing. I hope that the city continues to loosen restrictions for us and see that most of the people that are coming out to the music scene are really cool and invested and self-regulating. We look out for each other. It's not New York, it's not Atlanta. It's a small place, and people do take care of each other. So hopefully we'll have just more freedom as time goes on, and I hope that the people who have stepped up to fill roles and fill time over the pandemic continue to have motivation to try new things and be innovative, and of course they will. That's what we do.
I love that. Thank you for all of that. Thank you, all of you. We are wrapping up, so I just want to thank everyone for tuning in to this International Women's Day live stream. I want to thank Shack 15 for hosting this discussion. I want to thank Fault Radio for the production. And I also want to give a special shout out to another boss lady behind the scenes, which is Dundee, co-founder of Fault Radio, for all that she does and for giving so passionately to this event. And I also want to give another shout out to Fault Radio for, more importantly than this, but continuing to be really integral to our local music community and giving a platform for many women DJs, VJs, and other types of artists in our community. We really appreciate you. On that note, I just really quickly, I'm going to say, if you're watching this and enjoy Fault Radio's programming, please consider joining their Patreon subscription or making a donation. And each of you have a final remark or advocacy or fundraising pitch. Go for it. Colby?
Well, please support Save Our Stages. Please make the phone calls, write the emails, invest where you can. Please invest in Revive the Night and these local venues. Support those artists too, those ones that you may not have known before. If you love music, love all music and support all music.
Yeah, and just know that, we're not going to be out of the woods for a long time. Once an industry falls flat on the ground, it takes a long time to rise back up and flourish the way it did. So, be gentle to the communities around you, the people who are music oriented, the people who work in music. It's still going to be a long ride until we're back to where we were. So please keep supporting, even if things start to open up again. We're still going to need the support for a very long time.
Yeah, we are. We need the support right now, and we're going to continue to need it. And I also want to remind people that when they come out to F8, they will feel better. It has been amazing to just revisit the phenomenon of music healing and dazzling people with a little lights and mirrors, and that things can still be fun even if we can't hug each other or see each other or gather the way that we want to. Yeah, it's not ideal by any means, but we're making the most of it, and this is the best city to make the most of it. So I hope everyone goes out and says thank you excessively to everyone that works in a bar or a nightclub that is doing all they can to keep things together right now.
Well, you have my gratitude, and thank you to these lovely panelists. Thank you for your time, and thank you for your candid conversation. Thank you to all the artists who are performing as part of this live stream, and thank you for tuning in.
Thanks, Reagan.
Thanks, Reagan.
Thank you.
That was so nice.